Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Welcome to the Sands Box. I am Christian Sands, and today we are talking independent artists and independent artistry. And who better to have that conversation with two of my favorite people in the world. I absolutely love their artistry. I absolutely love their music. I've got a chance to make and play and collaborate with both these gentlemen, and I absolutely love them dearly. Please welcome José James and Etienne Charles.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yo.
Yeah. So, Etienne, where you at?
I am in Trinidad in a quarantine facility at the University of the West Indies. I am in Canada Hall, South Block.
Right, that's what it looks like. They taking care of you?
Yeah, it's been great. It's good to be home, feeling the warmth. I won't need a coat for a month, so it feels good.
Yeah. I hope they're feeding you well too.
Oh, definitely. Lots of local food and
Got the saltfish in there.
And they allow us to get deliveries as well. So the fridge is completely stocked with, my mom sent me a bunch of fruit and a bunch of local delicacies and whatnot. So yeah, we good here.
There you go. What about you, Jose?
Upstate New York, man. We're dealing with a lot of snow, so total opposite to you.
That's right.
I'm looking at deer and snow out the window. Man.
There you go. Right. Mm-hmm. So I want to just have this conversation with you guys just about being independent artists and having independent labels. I mean, you guys have done so much over the years in your own careers, and I love following it. I love seeing the moves that you guys make. So I just want to have this conversation with you. I think that this is going to be something that a lot of people are interested in. I've had a lot of conversations with younger musicians, and people are always asking me, like, should I go out looking for a record label? Should I do independent? Where am I at? So I guess we'll start off with that. What are the perks, the reward of being an independent artist? We'll start with you, Etienne.
Yeah, I mean, it's there are lots of perks. I think the reason I went that way because I didn't really have a choice. When I came out with my first record, I was completely off the radar.
Yeah.
And it was a situation where I had this record done and putting it out myself. At the time, I didn't know it was quote unquote an independent record label.
Yeah.
But looking back, that was 14 years ago, and
wow.
Yeah, wow.
We've done 7 records since, 8 records, including Alex Winter's record. But I think the main perks are one, complete artistic freedom.
Yeah.
Which sometimes, I mean, a lot of times labels give the artists that, but a lot of times they don't. And so it's complete artistic freedom, and then on top of that, I mean, complete ownership.
Yeah.
You own the masters. You don't have to worry about sharing publishing with anyone, and you don't really have to worry about watching your back, which a lot of times, some people that end up having major record deals end up having to work. I mean, we've all heard the horror stories. And
right.
I've been lucky to have great mentors who both had quote unquote bad record deals.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. I was like, well, as long as I can find the money to do it right, which is the key, is finding the resources, finding the capital to do it right, which means I might not do as much.
Right.
I might not put out as much, but quality over quantity. And
exactly.
Yeah, for me, maintaining ownership and maintaining artistic freedom are the 2 perks I see.
Exactly. Now, for you, Jose, you've been a part of many different labels throughout your career, and now you're at a point where not only are you considered an independent artist, but you also have an independent label as well. So talk to me about your journey through that. What led you to this place in your life now?
It's a great question. And I agree with everything Etienne said. I think it's all about control and understanding what you're getting into, regardless of what it is. You know, I got signed to Giles Peterson's Brownswood Recordings in London, which it was and is an indie. So I learned a lot about what indies can and can't do.
Yeah.
For example, they overspent in their first year.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they blew all their money and they were like, all right, well, I guess that's it. So,
right.
And so I would see other artists who got signed after me not get as much budget. And, you know, we're all friends. So we all talk. We all kind of like compare notes backstage and stuff. So we
exactly.
Know, details. And then I guess what happened with me there is what Etienne mentioned, the creative control. I had creative control for my first album.
Yeah.
Didn't have it for my second album. For example, I met this young brother. Now we know him as Flying Lotus. Back then, he was just put out an EP. I met him in London. We kind of like fell in love with each other's music. And he started sending me beats. We started making tracks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, I brought some of the tracks back to my label. I said, yo, this is the kid. He should produce my whole next album. And they're like, no, he's too young.
Wow.
There's too many samples to clear.
Yeah.
They turned down Flying Lotus,
That's
an entire Flying Lotus album.
That's actually really deep.
Yeah. So this is what Etienne was saying. It's like, when you're signed, my only choice was to leave.
Right.
And I'd get into all kinds of trouble or just put the album out. So the irony is, of course, by the time the album came out, Flying Lotus became like the biggest thing in electronic music, and they were begging him to do anything. And by that point, he was just like, nah, y'all turned me down. Like, and I was caught in between it. Yeah. So those kind of situations can be really tough when they happen, and it's impossible to know. So, you know, needless to say, I moved on after that experience.
Right.
Because there's like a certain amount of trust that I think has to exist between the label and the artist, you know?
Yeah.
I signed to Verve, which was doing the Impulse reprint. And something kind of similar happened. We were talking about doing an album with Flying Lotus, doing a super, you know, edgy. He's Alice Coltrane's nephew.
Right.
So the story was there. And then the economy crashed.
Yeah.
So, you know, once again, I had signed on the line and signed on to do a certain project. And then they're like, nah, now you need to be Aloe Black. He's hot. So let's get you in the booth with his people. And I mean, I could go on and on, but needless to say, I was not that dude. So I did find a home with Blue Note for a long time and have the kind of creative control from Don Was. But the pressure I found there, and we could talk more about it, was, you know, being signed to essentially a major label and having that pressure.
Yeah.
If you don't sell, you're gonna get dropped. No matter how much they love you, it's gonna happen.
Well, that was my next question. You know, there is that pressure of major labels have of just being that. You know, so have you noticed a similar pressure with indie labels or independent labels? You know, is there a pressure of like, okay, you have to do this in order for us to succeed, or is it very chill? You know, you do what you need to do, and you know, we'll support you no matter what.
I think it's different for every like level of where artist is at.
Yeah.
Like now, if I sign to an indie label, I already have a following. I have a social media platform. I have a name in media, in the business. Right. So it'd be different. So I think as an emerging artist, it was really important for me to be on Brownswood. Yeah. They introduced me to the world, and I'm forever grateful to Giles and the team. Yeah. Now, you know, I can sort of, like Etienne said, I can do what I want when I want. I just have to pay for it. Right. 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 And do all the work, you know. So it's kind of like, you know, your vision has to match your ability. Yeah. And not only artistic, but the label's ability to move the project forward. Yeah. You know.
So Etienne, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, just about you know, putting your own money into your own projects. and you know, it's a lot for you to do as an independent artist. It's a lot to do, just, you know, just to support your own career and your own self. So I want to talk to you about distribution, you know, talking about seeking distribution. How do you get your music out there? You know, is it harder to do that as a single entity, or is it easier? You know, how does one do that with distribution?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I'm glad that Jose brought up all of these things, because it's good for young artists to know about these situations, and for our fans, our supporters, to know about them as well. I would say being an independent label really helps, because you get to understand how money works and where you should and where you shouldn't spend. I would say with distribution, my first three records, my distribution was quote unquote out of the trunk.
Right.
And digital, so iTunes. So my first album I did distribution was CD Baby.
Right.
So like they would say, we need 10 CDs, I would ship them 10 CDs, or we need 40 CDs, I'll send them 40. And they would do they handled iTunes and all that, and they would just send me a check. Right. Which was cool. And I would, you know, the best way to sell albums is always touring. And that's always been my thing, is get on the road and sell records. So, but then when Creole Soul was about to come out, there was a lot of interest from major labels. And so I was like, well, if there's major label interest, let me figure out if I could get some distribution going. And it just happened that right before we were about to set up releasing Creole Soul, because I had lined up a major publicist for the album, which is one of the big parts of, kind of, I think of it as a part of distribution as well. Yeah, for sure. And so one of the major labels like closed. And I was already in talks with them about potentially putting out a record. And the A&R guy, he basically wrote me, and he said, his name's Pat Rosticki, and it was Palmetto Records, and he reached out to me and he said, yo, I don't know what to tell you. I just lost my job.
Yeah. Wow. So, I remember this too, because this is, I think, right when we met. This is happening. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And actually,
the wind blew again.
The Monk record, and anyway, we went to record, and so I was like, well, would you like a job? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, you run a label, right? Well, run my label.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about distribution. And he was the one that kind of put things in place. And that's how we ended up with a major distribution deal for Creole Soul.
There you go.
So it was a major label contact that got hired by an independent label. And you know, this industry is all about who you know. And so since then, I've been with the same distributor, and they handle distribution for all of the major labels. So even though I have an independent label, US, Canada, and then digital, I get the same treatment as the majors. So that's a blessing that I'm grateful for. And it was all just because I was like, let me just take a chance on this guy, and he came.
Yeah, that's tight, bro.
That's beautiful. Yeah, man. See, everybody listen to this. This is very important. So, man, let's move on to just further distribution, in the sense of you talk about PR, you talk about visibility. What role does social media play in the distributing the sound of your music and your music, but also just who you are as an artist and the development of you as an artist? So I'll talk to you, Jose, about that.
Great question. I think there's no easy answer.
Yeah,
I think it plays a huge role, but again, the kind of platform, I think, is crucial depending on the age of the person.
Yeah.
Like right now, if we got a new artist, it'd be all about TikTok. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like for a lot of my friends, they're on Facebook. They're a lot older.
Right.
Older American or European. They love Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. You got to meet people where they are and spend accordingly, and I've learned a lot, and I should shout out Talia Billig, who's a label co-founder. The three of us run, me, Tali, and Brian Beder, the engineer, run Rainbow Blonde. And we've learned a lot. There's nothing more humbling than spending a lot of money on a digital campaign that goes nowhere. That's how you learn fast when it's your money.
Right.
But there's also something so beautiful and gratifying about the sort of natural reach of digital as well. Like we put out Ben Williams' first album as a vocalist called I'm a Man, which is one of my favorite albums just of all time. I love Ben. We all love Ben. He's the homie. He started singing. We were on
Oh, we were surprised. Sort of. He would sing every once in a while. We're like, man, you should do that.
Exactly. And he, he gave us this beautiful project. And for an artist like Ben, who's already pretty well known in jazz and has a global reach, it's kind of easy to just, give him the tools. So, now you can share, for example, on Spotify, you're listening to a track, you can share it directly to Instagram, and people love that, make it easy. Morris Bernstein, the CEO of Giant Step, told me if it's not one click, you failed, basically. He's like, make it easy, make it one click. If it's 2 clicks, it's over. So we've been, kind of learning how to tailor everything for each artist, including myself. I'm on the label too. And that's been cool. And the best things for me have been just kind of grassroots, man. Like if somebody's feeling something, make sure they have like that 15-second, 30-second, 1 minute clip, make it for story, make it for IG, make it for Facebook, make it shareable, give one to every musician on the project, But it's a lot of work, and not everybody shares everything. But in our scene, once the impetus is going, everybody's like, oh, I want to share it too.
Right.
And then it becomes a thing.
So how does it feel? For both of you guys, you're talking about you, Jose, with Rainbow Blonde, Etienne with Culture Shock, and you guys have produced, not only just your own magnificent albums, but also artists that we love. Like, for you, Jose, with Ben Williams, and Etienne with you with Alex Wentz. How does it feel to help out another brother in art? How does it feel to help out another artist that you also, they've either played in your band or you played in their band, or you guys are always together, you guys are friends too, but how does that feel to just assist another artist in this creation process and being them?
You go, man.
Go ahead, brother.
That's really what this is all about. If you think of it like just being on the road and being in a band, it's the same thing, just in the recording realm, where with Alex, he recorded the album, and he was like, yo, I want you to hear my album. And so I checked it out, and I was like, yo, I like this. We should put it out. I want to put it out on Culture Shock. And he was very happy with that because not only was he getting help financially, but he was also getting guidance in the whole independent releasing game, and it all comes down, at the end of the day, it all comes down to budget, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to showing people like where you may have made a mistake. But then there's also, as Jose, as all three of us know, this industry changes every 6 months now.
Right.
Like it changes the first time I came out with a record, MySpace was the way to promote it.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? We went from MySpace and High Five with Tom, and
that's right.
500,000 views of the I Can't Help It duo she had with Leonel Wike. Like we went from that to then Facebook. Then from Facebook, Twitter became a thing. From Twitter, it became this.
With the little ones in there, Reverb Nation.
And between Twitter and Instagram, you had Vine. Vine was a thing, and so all those different ways of, that's constantly going to change, and I love constantly studying where people are, where they live, where they want to consume music, and where they want to feel and communicate as a result. And like Jose said, you have to know based on the age groups and the demographics. And I think this is where being an independent label is more powerful, because we as the artists, we are face to face with our fans.
Yes, right. That's right. Yeah.
We are, like Jose, you see your audience, like you sign their CDs at the shows and you know them, like they talk to you on social media. And so we have like a direct contact. And as a result, when you have your own label, if you have the infrastructure in place for your own sales, you end up with the user data that record labels, the major labels are going for, or that places like YouTube and stuff are going for. Like I was explaining to somebody the other day, like putting a video on YouTube might be great for you to get analytics about locations of where your listeners are, but you won't get their email address or phone number as if they come to your website and buy a product. So it's just a con. But with Alex, it was fun because that was one of his first records.
Right.
And so it's about your grassroots network, like Jose said. So it's about your friends, your family, your colleagues. You know, we would sell his CDs at my gigs. So I'd be like, yo, check out Alex. You know, Alex just came out with his records on my label. It's at the CD booth. And I know Freddie Cole used to do that with Randy Napoleon as well.
Right.
So, you know, it's a way to, you know, because it's about the art. The only reason to have a label is to push the art.
Right.
You know, like we don't do this for money. I'm sorry.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I actually make more on Bitcoin than selling records.
There you go. Right. So man, let me ask you guys this. You know, how did you guys? Well, actually, let me ask you this. How did you start it? You know, I mean, was it something that I mean, and I'm not talking about the idea. I'm also talking about just financially. Like, how did you get to the point where you're like, I'm gonna start my own label. I'm gonna start just helping guys out. I'm gonna start helping myself out. You know, how did this start for you, Jose?
Great question, man. Well, for me, it started out of necessity because my albums on Brownswood were on a 10-year license.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think that's how every deal should be, honestly, a license. You know, if you're giving away your master, I'm talking to the young artists out there, you better be getting a lot.
Right.
A lot.
Come on.
Twice as much as whatever they're offering.
Come on.
So, you know, I had these albums, The Dreamer and Black Magic with the Flying Lotus joints, and Taylor McFerrin and Moody Man, you know, really dope music. So I got the rights back, you know, in 2008 was when I signed with Brownswood. So yeah, 2018, all of a sudden I realized, I'm getting the rights back to this album. Brownswood reached out, you know, do you want to continue? I was like, no, I'd like my master back. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But of course you need a vehicle, you know, so initially I put together the label just as a home for my back catalog because I was still signed to Blue Note. I couldn't, you know, really tour or promote. And Don was super cool. Like he knew about it. He was just like, yeah, put it out. Like, because I think I was doing the Bill Withers tribute project. And so I was heavy touring that, and the albums kind of came out at the same time, and they were cool about it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really do a lot. So the label itself was sort of like a back catalog label at first.
Yeah.
And so I could continue to get the ISRC numbers, get the play counts. That's also really important. We should mention that, you know, having all of that intellectual property, because if you don't have those numbers, you know, you have 1 million plays on Spotify and then it just stops.
Right.
And then you start over again, you know?
Right.
And then really, Talia Billy, you know, her artist name is Tali, who's my creative partner and, you know, really was in the ground up. She's been telling me to start my own label for years.
Yeah.
So is Richard Spaden, the drummer from the UK.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, I think we could really make this a much bigger thing. She had the vision to make it a global community that, you know, frankly, I didn't have because I was out there touring, doing the normal, you know, put out an album tour.
Doing the circuit.
Yeah, doing the circuit. And so she really started building the SEO, the website, and thinking about the larger structure, which was amazing. Because then when my time came to decide to, you know, what I was going to do with my new project, and I decided, you know, to part ways with Blue Note, it was a no-brainer. It was like, yeah, we'd already had a year plus of working with Ingrooves, that's our distributor. You know, going to meetings with them, you know, putting out Tali's music, signing Ben's album, working on that. And, you know, I think what Etienne is saying too is like, this whole thing is like very much a labor of love.
Yeah.
You know, like with Ben Williams' album, he was playing me demos on tour and I liked it. I said, keep working on it, you know, and then 6 months later, he'd have another idea. Then he went to LA to work with Brian Bender for like a week,
right?
You know, which is part of our deal. We give production help and mixing with Brian Bender in LA, which is great, you know. So he was able to take his ideas and really expand on them and make the album that you hear today. And I think those are the sort of finer points of what independent labels can offer.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we understand what the deal is. We know what the grind is.
For sure.
You know, and we can call it favors if need be. You know?
Right. I mean, what I like about it, you know, from this entire conversation that we're having, it is a community-based idea where we're all in this together, you know, and we're all grinding and we all know the grind and we're all either in the same place or somebody's a little bit ahead, but like, hey man, let me bring you up here with me, you know, sit up front with me. And this is how we do this together. You know, I'll produce your record, you produce my record or whatever, you know, and you'll just move in that direction. So I love that. I know we got to wrap up right now, but my last question is just simply for young musicians and artists that are looking to A, be signed, or B, be independent. You know, are there any words of wisdom that you guys have to share with those young musicians out there? We'll start with you, Etienne.
Yeah, great questions, great conversation.
Yeah,
it's really inspiring to hear both of you and Jose. You know, because I've been a fan. I remember the first time I heard the Detroit Jazz Festival, 2009.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right.
Right. You know, and it was a jam session, which is like the best time to hear people.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but with respect to advice that I would give young people, like before deciding on finding a label versus finding your own means to put your record out, I would say try to figure out finding your voice and finding your reason.
Yes.
Finding your audience as well. Those three things are really what you need to either have a successful campaign or have a successful label.
Yeah.
You know, because in the world we live in now, you actually don't need a record to be successful. Like most records make other people successful and not the artist. You know, at the end of the day, when you look at the numbers. So really think about why you want to do that. And then, you know, think about, I've spoken with a lot of people about this. A lot of friends of mine are major labels. We all have friends on major labels. We have friends that do independent. And, you know, if you're trying to get your word out, the most, I honestly think that in the last 50 years of, you know, jazz industry, I mean, there's no story in terms of like trajectory of stardom like the story of Marsalis. Like what Columbia was able to build for him is incredible. In terms of like reach and fame. I mean, they had him everywhere, Sesame Street, you know, and so major labels have that pull, but you pay for it. And if you have a strong network of people who love you and love your music, you don't need to sell as much, you know. And there's a cost to fame. That cost is the publicist. They don't tell you that in school. But when that invoice comes at the end of the month, every month, whether you're on a 4-month retainer with the publicist or it's a 6-month retainer, or if you figure out a way to pay them for a year, at the end of the day, there's a really, really high price for fame. And a lot of times it's more than you will make selling the records. So I would say really think about all those things. And just, you know, and then get your music together. Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than trying to find a label without a sound. Right. Or trying to do a record without a sound.
Right. First and foremost, get your music together.
Real talk.
That's right. What about you, Jose?
Same, man. Music first and foremost. You know, when I was without a label 2012, I went to the lab with Pino Palladino and we started making No Beginning, No End. And he was the one who said, let's get Glasper, let's get Chris Dave, let's go to the Magic Shop, RIP now, get Rest Lovato. And, you know, it was not cheap.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But those, I had the power. And Pino, I got to really shout him out because he really blessed me. And he's seen everybody come and go, man. He just stepped in and was like, I'm doing your album.
Yeah, and he's such a gracious man too. Like he's so amazing too. Yeah. So shout out to Pino.
Shout out, man. He didn't know me at all, really. Yeah. You know, we just got introduced. He was like, "Yo, I'm feeling you. Let's do this. I'm on your album," just like that. You know.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I self-funded that really, and then that got the attention of Don, and I was able to leverage myself a better deal than I would have if I would have just been like, "Yo, I'm out here," you know. So I think you always, even if it's an indie or major or, you know, self-release, whatever, you have to have, it has to be fire. Like it has to be interesting. Even if you don't have a social media reach, you should have like one song that's just undeniably good, you know. Otherwise there's nothing to talk about. But you know, I would say, adding on to everything Etienne said, like life is long. So like what works for you in the beginning may not work for you in your midpoint of career, you know, and in the end of your career. I watched Jason Moran, you know, have a lot of famous success on Blue Note, and now he's self-releasing his own stuff. Yeah. And he's super happy putting out an album every 3 or 4 years on his own time. So I think there is no one size fits all. You just got to kind of like assess each album and kind of, hopefully you can give yourself that freedom. Don't sign a 7-album deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sign one and see how it goes. And I think artists have a lot more power now to do that.
Yeah. I got a question. I know you were asking if I have a question. I have a question.
Okay.
I know we got to wrap up, but and this question is for both of you because like I'm on the Jason Moran tip, like put out a record
for sure.
Want. Like don't feel the urge.
For sure.
Don't feel the pressure. So, with you know, I guess when I don't know if it was during lockdown, and some news came out about a certain streaming company CEO saying that artists needed to double up on content that they were releasing to keep the audience engaged. What did you all think about that? You know, when we live in a world where we still listening to Kind of Blue.
Yeah, I'll let you answer that, Jose.
I mean, I know it was controversial, but I totally agree with him, honestly. Yeah. I think like if you're gonna play the game, like that's what the game is. It's algorithm, you know. So like he's just saying that's how it works. Right. And if you want to play in that game, that's what you got to do. That's why Drake is on top, you know. Right. I mean, he's also dope, but you know, he puts out an album every day. Right. So I think it's like, you know, if you are going for that streaming market or social media market for that matter, content is king. Yeah. And I think it was a lost opportunity because I think he was actually putting people onto some game if they didn't understand how the algorithm of that platform worked and all the platforms. Right. So, you know, I understand because, you know, I put out music myself, so I understand, you know, if you want to have that time and space to work on it. But, you know, I for me, I've taken that to heart. Like I'm about to drop a double live LP next month, and I recorded during the pandemic because I'm like, hey, you know, let's drop some music. It doesn't all have to be, and I think I learned from Drake too. It doesn't all have to be like gold. He's just putting out whatever
content. Right. He's just putting out content.
It's a mixtape. It's some ideas. Boom, boom, whatever.
Well, that's kind of the time we're in too, where everything is about content. Everything is about, and it doesn't have to, like, especially because of the pandemic, none of it has to be, you know, polished. Yeah. You know, like it used to be. You know, at this point now, everything can be very rough, and there's something cool about hearing that and seeing that now. Yeah. You know, I think the pandemic has the one cool and positive part of the pandemic is that it has made everyone kind of reevaluate what our ideas are and how we distribute them. You know, now we're hearing people just record stuff on their phone and like, okay, that's the record, you know, and it sounds cool. It's got a vibe. It's got great ideas. I mean, it's all about how good, you know, the content. Now, if it's horrible, sloppy, and you just kind of put crap into it, I mean, it's going to sound like that, you know, and it'll only go so far. But, you know, to answer your question, Etienne, I agree with Jose. You know, this is the game that you have to play if you want to do that. You know, if you want to do that, this is the game you have to play, you know. And if you do it well, and you're already dope as it is, you know, if we talk about Drake, I mean, Drake is dope and amazing no matter what he does, you know. And if he records something on his phone, it's gonna be cool, you know. It's gonna be a thing, you know.
Well, here's an interesting point though. I just thought of, actually, because you mentioned Miles, and I just thought of this. Miles back then was recording as much as Drake, if you think about it,
all the time,
and he probably would have been releasing way more, you know, than he was allowed to. So I don't know. I feel like you just got to do you. But if I think back to how much Train was in the lab, man, you know, he probably would have loved Spotify. Like, damn, another Coltrane? Like,
you're like, another one today?
Another Coltrane single is 15 minutes long?
Right, He probably would have all did singles. They all would have been singles.
Yeah, you know, the thing is, I agree on, I mean, I don't play that game. My music's not on that platform, so I don't play that game. Yeah. But I do agree if it is that you do want to play that game, but the difference is that there was a lot more money in the game back then.
There was.
Maybe.
There was more. I mean, records was selling.
Right, depending on who you were dealing with.
The gigs paid the same then as they do now.
I feel you.
So I mean, you look at the Massey Hall contract for Bird, Diz. Like, you know, you look at that Massey Hall contract, the gigs paid the same then as they do now. So true. So when I think of, because I'm all about numbers. Right. When I think of numbers, like I see those numbers and I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of people listening, but are they buying tickets? Are they buying product as well? And so that's where my question is, because I see labels making revenue off of it, but I don't see that getting to the artist.
Yeah.
And so that's where my questions are. And so I understand that, you know, if you can get music out to people to keep them hooked on you, great. And if that works and it gets you more people, I mean, we at the end of the day, we really need to revitalize this idea of what it means to be, you know, in our field, in our quote unquote genre, you know, the term I hate, but as a record label owner, I understand.
Right? we gotta do a part 2, man. This is
for sure.
It's a whole nother
Ryan.
It's a whole nother conversation.
We have to do part 2 of this. You know, we say this all the time, but we definitely gotta do a part 2 of this, man. You know. But first of all, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. Thank you for having these interesting conversations. There's definitely gonna be a part 2 of this because we got some more stuff to talk about, and I'm sure, and I'm sure in a couple months it'll change again. So we'll handle that once we get there. But thank you again. You know, y'all be safe. Y'all be careful. You know, hello to the family, and thanks for joining.
Happy holidays, y'all.
Happy holidays. Definitely.